There's a few really important things to consider when you're thinking about bringing a supplier from home or another destination to your destination wedding. Ciao, I'm Lucy, I'm an Italian wedding planner and I'm the founder of Lista.com, and it is my absolute passion to help couples get married in Italy and have a calm and confident experience doing so. Today I'm going to talk about what it's like to hire a professional from another country and bring them over to your destination wedding. I think there's loads of pros and cons when it comes to this, and there's also a few myths too. The most important thing when you're doing this is to pick the right supplier for you. It doesn't really matter where they come from. Getting the right supplier that you vibe with for each supplier that you have at your wedding is fundamentally important, and people underestimate just how much influence that supplier has on your wedding day and also how you feel about your wedding. So you've got to pick right, and that's my first and most important thing that you have to know. So if you're having a destination wedding in Italy, then it's likely that there's loads of suppliers in Italy that are going to be really good for the job. Let's pick an example. Let's say you're looking for your photographer. Now, there's loads of other videos on here on YouTube, but also in my membership, the club, about how to pick suppliers and specifically how to pick photographers. So have a look at those first and bear those things in mind. And you may find from doing that that you gel with someone that lives in another country. So you might be UK based, you might be having an Italian wedding, and you might think an American photographer is fantastic. And then I think there's some misconceptions about what can happen here. So initially, American photographer, you might think, oh, but they're going to be more expensive, they're going to have travel fees that apply. Actually, in a lot of cases, having foreign photographers come across to your wedding doesn't actually cost more, because in Italy, whilst there are lots of photographers, there are lots and lots more in other countries. So my market, UK, where I'm based in the winter, there are so many photographers, and that means the quality of them is pushed up because they're competing with one another, but it also means the prices are quite competitive because it is a big market. Whereas in Italy, there are less photographers, arguably, and the prices are that little bit higher. So by going for a supplier from overseas, you may actually be getting someone that's arguably a little bit more experienced or has more of a background in it, but is the same price as someone that you would get locally. Obviously, expenses and how that all works is something to get clear right at the start when you're having that conversation with your supplier. So in a brochure, you'll often find out whether travel is included in the cost or whether travel is added on top. When travel is added on top, it can be done in two ways. The first way is that the supplier has a flat fee for this. So they may say, no matter what, I'm going to charge you $500 for my travel, my accommodation, and then it's on that supplier to book it and to try and get it within that budget. The second way is that suppliers say, this is an open cost and I can't quote on it until I know exactly what's happening nearer the time. When they come to book flights, they may be more expensive and they don't want to risk that they've undercommitted to you and they've said a $500 max, but actually it's going to cost them $1,000 to get to their wedding. And this is just the different ways that people run their businesses and the different models that they use. And obviously we've got to respect those. It's then just something to weigh up from your side, whether you're happy with this approach or whether this pushes you into looking for and working with someone else that is going to charge expenses in the way that works for you. You can find that there's suppliers out there that really want to get into the destination, the Italian wedding market, and they are going to be willing to come and do your wedding for either a lower fee or potentially not charge travel expenses. So this is not something to ask of professionals that have done it many times. They're probably not going to negotiate too much. But for people that are looking to get into the industry or for this part of the industry, it's a really good opportunity for everybody. So it can be a good idea to go out, and if you're looking for a lower budget, if you've not got much to play with, then go and look for someone that's looking for that experience. And most importantly, as long as they align with what you're looking for and they're the right type of person to bring into your wedding, then go for it. But don't just shop on budget, please. One of the pros of working with people that come from a different country maybe is that they will have a different way of looking at things. So fashion and aesthetic can vary quite differently between country, and this is obviously something to look for when you're shopping for your suppliers. So if you're looking for a photographer, a videographer, a stylist, maybe even a florist, then they're going to have slightly different styles depending on where they come from, and that can be a real benefit. So you are bringing someone in that's got a kind of slightly different way of looking at things, and that is going to make your wedding completely unique, and that should just align with the vision that you have for your wedding. And finally, I think there's just two things to bear in mind when you are looking to bring someone in from abroad. it is a risk. So that person has to travel and they have to get there. And as much as things are easier now that COVID has gone away, it still does carry a risk. People still miss their flights are still delayed. So it can just be really beneficial if that person has experience of traveling, because as patronizing as this sounds, it isn't that easy. And once you're in flow and you've done it many, many times, life is much easier. You know how to deal with the problems that you're faced. And I'd say problems come up all the time when you're traveling as a supplier. You know, there's always something, and being able to think quickly on your feet, and most importantly, prioritize getting to and being at that wedding is absolutely key. So going with people that have done it before is a plus. I'd also say that having done it before and having experience of an Italian wedding is a massive plus. Now, everyone has to be new sometime, and obviously I was new. I still learn at every single wedding that I plan, but it is undeniable that if you have had experience of how an Italian wedding day goes, you're going to be able to do your job slightly differently, arguably slightly better, and maybe there's a price to pay for that on your side as the client. You know, it's hot in Italy. Working in the heat for 16-hour days, that is not easy. You have to walk a hell of a lot. You have to learn literally how to look after yourself through that. The day flows differently. There's a completely different way that our Italian wedding goes, which you will know by now. And a lot of suppliers may not know what that is. Obviously, as a planner or yourselves, you might brief the supplier, but it's really important to know how that goes, because their job is all about delivering within that environment. Even the light's different. So as a photographer or a videographer, you're playing with a completely different look of things, the way that the light affects everything, the time that the light comes, working with bright light, the sunshine when it's really bright on a wedding day, the golden hour, the most perfect time of the day. What if it rains in Italy? Like, there's so many things that are different about an Italian wedding when it comes to light. Again, it's really nice and helpful if your photographer or videographer have experience of that. So there's lots of things to think about there, but the long and short of it is that you have to pick the supplier that is right for you. You will know in your gut if a supplier feels right, and if they are coming from another country, you can weigh up these pros and cons, but ultimately I think it's more important to get the right supplier there, and all of the other problems can be solved. Don't forget that on Lista.com we've got loads of suppliers that we have vetted. We know them really well, or we have worked with them, and we will only recommend the very best suppliers to you for your Italian wedding. So head over there and check them out. They come from all over the world. And please don't forget, if you wanted to drop a comment below and let me know what you think of this video, give us a like or a subscribe. That will really help us reach more couples that are planning Italian weddings. Thank you. I'll see you next time.